Picture yourself in a medieval village where the air smells of damp earth and wood smoke, and the ground beneath your feet is alive with secrets. Tonight, you're not chasing tales of kings or battles, but something humbler, earthier, a world of vegetables grown by calloused hands that fed families through frost and famine. These aren't the glossy carrots or crisp lettuce of your local market. No, these are the forgotten roots and greens of medieval Europe crops, with names like skirret and scorsonera harvested not for profit but for survival, simmered in pottages over crackling hearths, or mashed into remedies for aching bones. They're the kind of plants that could make a modern chef scratch their head, yet they were the backbone of a peasant's winter, the difference between a full belly and a hungry night. Before you settle in, maybe dim the lights, crack a window for that cool evening breeze, or turn on a fan for some soft white noise, whatever helps you sink into this story. If you're enjoying this journey into the past, give a nod to the tale by liking or subscribing and drop a comment. Where are you listening from and what time is it there? Maybe it's midnight in Chicago or dawn in Dublin. Either way, you're here and we're digging into history together. These vegetables, they're not just food, they're stories of grit and ingenuity of people who coaxed life from stubborn soil. Some nights these tales might keep you awake, too vivid to lull you to sleep. Others, like tonight, they're meant to be just boring enough to ease you into dreams with the rhythm of a storyteller's voice and the scent of a long-gone garden. So let's start with the first of these forgotten crops, a root so sweet it charmed even the monks. Ready? Let's unearth it together. Imagine standing in a medieval garden, the kind tucked behind a stone cottage or a cloistered monastery, where the soil is damp and the air hums with the buzz of early spring. You're holding a skirret, a root vegetable so unassuming you might mistake it for a weed, but oh, it's got a secret. Peel back its pale, pencil-thin roots, and you'll find a flavour that's sweet, nutty with a whisper of pepper like a parsnip flirting with a sunchoke. Back then, before potatoes crashed the European party in the 16th century, skirret was a star. You'd find it in every plot from the humblest peasant's patch to the manicured beds of Henry VIII's gardeners. It wasn't flashy, but it was reliable, and in a world where winter could snatch your harvest, that was everything. You'd boil these roots, maybe roast them over a fire until they caramelised, or mash them with garlic and herbs from the same garden. In monastic kitchens where spices were a distant dream, skirret was candied like fruit, or baked into tarts with cheese and eggs, a little luxury from the dirt. It thrived in soggy northern soils, coming back year after year, even when frost locked the ground. Dig it up in December, and it'd still be there waiting like a loyal friend. But when the potato arrived calorie-heavy, easy to store, skirret's delicate roots got sidelined. Too much peeling, they said, too fussy for the new world. Now it's a ghost, barely a footnote, but somewhere beneath your feet its seeds are still dreaming of spring. Next we'll meet a green that grew where nothing else dared a plant they called poor man's asparagus. Step into a medieval peasant's yard where the soil is packed hard by boots, and the air carries the faint tang of livestock. Tucked against a sagging fence or sprawling near a cottage wall, you spot good King Henry, a scrappy green that doesn't beg for attention, but delivers every time. Its dark triangular leaves and tender shoots poke through the dirt stubborn as the folks who grew it. They called it poor man's asparagus, and for good reason. Those young spring shoots boiled soft had a bitter green bite like asparagus, a godsend after months of gnawing on dried beans. No king named this plant, mind you. Some say Henry comes from old words for home ruler, a nod to its knack for thriving. Right where you lived year after year, asking for nothing but a patch of earth. You'd snip those shoots early, toss them into a pot with lentils, or stir them into a thick pottage that warmed your bones. Later the broad leaves, rich with iron and vitamins, went into pies or stews, a quiet boost for a body worn by plough and sickle. This wasn't just food, it was medicine, its seeds ground for poultices, its roots dried for tonics, even its ashes scrubbed pots clean in a pinch. Good King Henry grew where fancier crops wouldn't dare, in rocky soil or stable muck, making it a peasant's ally. But as spinach and chard took over its coarse leaves, got labelled outdated, too rough for refined tables. Still in its day it was a green that fed the hungry and laughed at hard times. Next we'll dig up a root that tasted like the sea itself, a winter prize called salsify. You're in a frost-kissed medieval garden, the kind where every plant has to earn its keep. In the corner you see salsify, a wiry root with a secret nickname, the oyster plant. No, it didn't grow in the sea, but scrape off its hairy skin, boil it in milk or roast it with herbs, and you'd swear there's a faint briny echo of oysters, a rare treat in a world far from the coast. Planted in spring, it grew slow and steady, its flavour deepening as winter's first frost hit, turning sweet and tender. For a medieval cook that was magic, a root that laughed at cold, ready to dig up when the world was frozen and the pantry bare, you'd scrub those slender roots, clean soak them to keep their creamy flesh white, then mash them into soups or stew them with onions for a silky bite. Monks swore by its sap for snake bites or a gloomy heart, while its leaves fed hungry livestock in lean times. Salsify wasn't a show-off like turnips or onions. It stayed small, tucked in monastery plots or manor gardens too fussy for big fields. When potatoes rolled in, easy and filling, salsify got left behind its delicate prep, no match for a spud's simplicity. But back then it was a quiet luxury, a taste of the sea in the dead of winter, proof that even the humblest root could surprise you. Up next we'll meet Alexander's, a peppery herb the Romans loved enough to carry across empires. You're standing on a windswept hillside in medieval Britain, where the salty tang of the sea mingles with the earthy scent of a garden gone half wild. Here, towering up to 6 feet, is Alexander's, a plant the Romans hauled across their empire, and left to thrive in monastery plots and along castle walls. Its glossy green leaves and hollow stalks carry a peppery celery-like kick, bold enough to wake up a bland stew or pottage. Back when spices like cinnamon were a nobleman's flex, Alexander's was the commoner's answer. Its leaves tossed into soups, its seeds ground for a zesty seasoning, its roots roasted like a vegetable with a bite. Every bit of it was a gift from roadside patches to coastal cliffs where other crops sulked. In spring you'd blanch the young stalks soft and snappy to eat like asparagus or pickle them for a sharp tang. Monks loved it for its grit, growing in salty soils near the sea-feeding communities, when winter stocks ran thin. It bridged the hungry gap those bleak weeks before summer harvests, with a flavour that punched through the monotony of barley and beans. But when milder, tamer celery came along, Alexander's got pushed to the wild, its unruly seeds and sharp taste too much for neat gardens. Still, to those who foraged it basket in hand, it was a burst of green life, a Roman legacy that tasted like spring itself. Next we'll unearth scorzonera, a root so dark it hid a golden heart beloved by healers and cooks alike. Picture yourself kneeling in a medieval garden, the kind where monks hum prayers, and the soil smells of frost and secrets. You're holding scorzonera, a root as rough as old bark, black and gnarled, but crack it open, and it's creamy white, smooth as butter, with a sweetness softer than a carrot. They called it viper's herb, not for its looks, but for whispers of its power. Apothecaries swore it could fend off snakebite's plague, or even a heavy heart. You'd peel these fragile roots with care, boil them with herbs for a monk's simple supper, or bake them into pies in fancier halls, maybe drizzled with honey to coax out their nutty depth. It was a quiet star, never as loud as onions, but cherished for its delicate charm. Scorzonera grew slow, demanding patience in cool northern soils, but it rewarded with roots that lasted through winter's grip. Farmers loved its low-maintenance heart, letting it sit undisturbed, while other crops fussed. In lean times it was a lifeline, its golden flesh a promise beneath the earth's tough skin. But when potatoes and carrots muscled in easy to grow and store, scorzonera's fussy prep and brittle roots got left behind. It faded to herbals and old recipes, a healer's relic. Yet in its time it was more than food, it was hope dug from frozen ground, a reminder that beauty hides in the roughest places if you're willing to dig. Up next, we'll meet the medlar, a fruit so odd it had to rot to ripen a medieval puzzle of patience and sweetness. You're in a quiet corner of a medieval orchard, where gnarled trees stand like old storytellers under a grey November sky. In your hand is a medlar, a fruit that looks like it's already given up wrinkled brown with an open star-shaped bottom that earned it crude nicknames in Old English taverns. But don't judge it yet. This oddball had to blet a fancy word for controlled rotting before it revealed its magic. Left on straw or a chilly windowsill, it softened into a mushy sweet pulp like spiced applesauce with a hint of wine, a rare treat, when winter locked away other fruits. Monks and manor cooks prized it, scooping it straight from the skin or mashing it with cream for a festive tart. Medlar trees grew slow, but tough, dotting monastery gardens or peasant plots their fruit harvested late, when apples were long gone. You'd pair it with mulled wine or roasted meats at a noble's feast, its richness a quiet boast of patience. Poets like Shakespeare saw it as a metaphor for aging ugly outside but deep with hidden sweetness. Yet when exotic oranges and peaches hit Europe, The meddler's slow ripening and odd looks fell out of favour. It was too much work for a world craving convenience. Still, in its day, it taught a lesson: wait long enough, and even decay can yield something beautiful. Next, we'll uncover Rampion, a humble root tied to a fairy tale as practical as it was poetic. Imagine a medieval cottage garden where herbs and roots crowd together like gossiping neighbours, and the air smells of turned earth and dew. Here grows Rampion, a modest plant with soft leaves and slender white roots, unremarkable until you know its story. Its young greens, tender as spinach, went into spring soups, while its roots, crisp and mildly sweet, like a shy radish, were roasted or eaten raw with a sprinkle of salt. For peasants with little land, Rampion was a treasure easy to grow happy in plain soil, and edible from top to bottom. It filled bellies when winter stores dwindled, a quiet hero of lean times. But you might know it better as Rapunzel, the fairy tale girl named for this very root, craved by her mother in a witch's garden. Rampion's lore runs deep, tied to desire and fertility in old Germanic tales, where it sparked the story of a girl locked in a tower. You'd find it in monastic herb beds, or tucked beside turnips, its leaves tossed into salads with vinegar, its roots boiled for a hearty stew. It didn't need pampering, thriving where fancier crops failed a gift for those who lived close to the earth. But as faster greens like lettuce took over, Rampion faded its name now more fairy tale than food. In its time, though, it was life itself, food story and a spark of magic in every bite. Up next, we'll explore Chervil root, a delicate monastic prize that tasted like chestnuts and patience. You're in a cloistered medieval garden where monks move like shadows, their robes brushing against rows of herbs. The air's thick with the scent of damp soil and crushed leaves, and in a shaded corner you find Chervil root, a pale, slender thing that looks like a stubby carrot but tastes like a secret. Boil or roast it, and it unfurls a sweet, nutty flavour like chestnuts, with a faint licorice whisper, delicate, not loud, but unforgettable. This wasn't a peasant's crop. It was a monastic darling grown in careful beds by hands that knew patience. Unlike the brash turnips of the fields, Chervil root took its time, sprouting slow and growing for months, a quiet reward for those who could wait. You'd see it mashed with butter in a monk's sparse meal, stirred into broths for a gentle sweetness, or baked into spiced cakes for holy days paired with honey and a prayer. Healers loved it too, brewing it into tonics to soothe fevers or ease a knotted stomach. But its fussy nature, needing rich soil and a long season, kept it from common plots. When faster crops like potatoes took over, Chervil root vanished too refined for the rush of new farms. Yet in those hushed gardens it was a taste of grace-proof that the earth could yield softness if you gave it time. Next we'll meet sea kale, a salty green that grew where the ocean kissed the land. Picture yourself on a medieval coastline where waves crash against jagged rocks and the wind tastes of salt. Clinging to the shore you spot sea kale, its thick bluish-green leaves curling like ocean waves, its ivory stems tough as the cliffs themselves. This wasn't your average garden green. Its flavour was a briny dance of cabbage and asparagus, earthy and nutty, a wild gift from the sea. Foragers and coastal farmers cherished it, especially in early spring when they'd blanch its shoots under clay pots or sand to keep them tender and pale. Those crisp stems, boiled or steamed, were the first fresh bite after a winter of shriveled roots, a signal that the world was waking up. You'd serve it with fish in a fishing village, maybe drizzled with butter, or mix it into stews in monastic kitchens that mimicked the salty shore. Its roots, thick and starchy, were boiled into tonics, or pickled for hard times, while its leaves, tough but edible, simmered long in hearty pots. Sea kale stayed wild, growing where salt and cold killed weaker plants, but it never travelled far inland, too picky for regular farms. As cabbages and kale got tamer, sea kale faded, a coastal relic. But for those who knew its rhythm, it was more than food. It was the sea's promise, a taste of renewal in a rugged world. Up next, we'll dig into horseradish, a root so fierce it could clear your head and your sins. You're crouched in a medieval herb garden, the kind where every plant pulls double duty as food and physic, and the air's sharp with the scent of wet earth. In your hands is horseradish, a root so fierce it could wake the dead, or at least your sinuses. Grate its white flesh, and it bites back, releasing a heat that stings your eyes and clears your head like a slap. In a world without chili peppers or wasabi, this was the fire that lit up a meal, turning boiled beef or smoked fish into something bold. You'd mix it with vinegar and honey, maybe mustard seeds, and slather it on heavy winter meats, cutting through the fat with a zing that made your tongue dance. Monks and healers swore by it, steeping it in tonics for coughs, rheumatism, or a sluggish gut. Its leaves pressed into poultices drew out aches, while its roots, stubborn as sin, spread like wildfire once planted. Farmers tucked it in garden corners, knowing it'd return each spring, no fuss needed. At Easter feasts, it symbolised purification, a fiery cleanse for body and soul. When milder flavours took over, horseradish stuck around, but its medieval glory when it was medicine feast and defiance in one faded. Still, it was the earth's own spark proof that even the humblest root could pack a punch. Next, we'll meet parsley, a quiet hybrid that blended parsley and celery into one clever herb. Imagine a medieval garden buzzing with life where every inch of soil is a bet against hunger. Nestled among the leeks and turnips is parsley, a sneaky little plant that's half parsley, half celery, and all business. Its dark serrated leaves carry the bright herby zing of parsley, while its firm stalks snap with the mild crunch of young celery. Chop it fine, and it lifts a pot of barley or lentils with a fresh green depth. Toss the stalks in a broth, and they add a quiet richness. In a time when spices were locked in noble vaults, parsley was a peasant's trick, bringing flavour and finesse to the humblest pottage. You'd even chew it raw to settle a meal, or freshen your breath after a garlicky stew. Healers loved it too, brewing its leaves into teas to ease bloating or spark appetite. Monks grew it in neat rows, valuing its double duty as food and medicine. It thrived in fertile beds, no diva, just a steady worker that earned its keep. But as celery got bigger and parsley got daintier, parsley slipped through the cracks, too subtle for big farms, too delicate for rough fields. By the time recipes forgot its name, it was a ghost lingering only in old herbals. Yet in its prime, parsley was a small miracle, two plants in one, proof that the earth could be clever if you paid attention. Up next, we'll explore lovage, a towering herb with a flavour bold enough to shake up any pot. You're at the edge of a medieval garden where the soil smells of rain, and the air hums with the rustle of leaves. Towering over the tidy rows of herbs stands lovage, a green giant that could brush the clouds, its thick hollow stems and glossy leaves like celery on a bold streak. One whiff, and it hits you sharp, spicy, a punch of parsley and anise that could turn a pot of plain barley into a feast. A few leaves tossed into a stew stretched a peasant's meagre pantry, while noble cooks used it to flavour cheeses or meats, its intensity making every bite sing. You'd blanch the stalks for a crisp side or grind the seeds for a peppery kick in breads, every part of this plant pulling its weight. Monks brewed lovage into teas to warm the gut or ease a sore throat, even tucked sprigs in their robes to fend off sickness with its pungent scent. It grew tall up to 6 feet and came back stronger each year, a godsend for farmers too busy to baby their crops. But as milder herbs like parsley stole the spotlight, lovage's loud flavour got sidelined too brash for delicate modern tastes. In its day, though, it was a culinary warrior, unapologetic and generous proof that a single plant could feed, heal and dazzle if you let it. Next we'll meet fat hen, a wild green so humble it grew, where no one asked, feeding the hungry with quiet grace. Picture yourself on the fringes of a medieval field, where the plough's edge meets wild tangles of weeds, and the air smells of turned earth and distant smoke. Here thrives fat hen, a plant so unassuming you'd yank it as a nuisance today. But back then it was a gift from the dirt. Its soft triangular leaves, dusted with a silvery sheen, taste mild and nutty like spinach's scrappier cousin. You'd boil them into soups, mash them with peas, or stir them into porridge, a green lifeline when harvest failed or winter lingered. Even kids could spot it foraging with bare hands, no tools or land deeds needed, just a sharp eye and a hungry belly. Fat hen sprouted wherever soil was disturbed, near barns or manured fields, its name a nod to its love for rich earth. Packed with iron and vitamins, it kept bodies strong when meat was a dream. Its tiny seeds, protein-rich, were ground into flour in famine years, while healers used it for gentle remedies, bug bites, upset stomachs, you name it. As farms got tidier and spinach got fancy, fat hen was dismissed as a weed, its wild heart no match for neat roos. But to those who gathered it, it was freedom food that asked nothing but a moment's notice, a green that fed the poorest and laughed at hard times. Up next we'll explore cramb, a wild cabbage that clung to cliffs and fed coastal souls. You're perched on a rugged medieval coastline where cliffs drop into churning waves and the air tastes of salt and grit. Clinging to the rocky slopes is crame, a wild cabbage with thick bluish-silver leaves that look like they've been sculpted by the sea itself. Its bitter, fibrous bite softens after long stewing, blending with onions or a scrap of pork into a meal that sticks to your ribs. For coastal folk, this plant was a stubborn ally growing where salt spray and cold winds killed lesser crops. You'd harvest its broad leaves in spring when fields were still bare, boiling them into a hearty pottage that meant the difference between hunger and hope. Cram's roots, starchy and tough, were dried for meal or fermented to stretch lean winters, while healers brewed its leaves into tonics to settle stomachs or cleanse the humours. It wasn't sweet or showy, thriving on dunes and forgotten edges, a plant of necessity more than celebration. Never fully tamed, it stayed wild, tied to poverty and survival in medieval mines. As milder cabbages spread inland, crame was left to the cliffs, its ghostly leaves a whisper of resilience. But for those who foraged it, it was life-proof that even the bitterest soil could offer nourishment if you knew where to look. Next we'll uncover turnip greens, the overlooked crown of a humble root that fed spring's hungry mouths. Imagine a medieval village in early spring where the frost has just loosened its grip and the air smells of mud and new growth. In a patch of dirt you see turnips, not just their familiar white and purple roots, but their leafy tops, turnip greens, a vibrant burst of green that tasted like spring itself. Young and tender, these leaves carried a peppery bite perfect for boiling into broths or sautéing with a bit of garlic. In peasant kitchens they'd mix with barley or beans, a fresh jolt after months of stale winter stores. For a people worn by cold and hunger, these greens were a lifeline rich in iron and vitamins to mend weary bodies. Healers praised them too, prescribing them to clean the blood or ease bruises when mashed into poultices. You'd snip them while the roots still grew, wasting nothing in a world where every scrap counted. Turnips were everywhere, easy to grow happy in poor soil, but their greens were the real prize in spring, the signal of renewal. As spinach and lettuce rose in favour, bred for softer leaves, turnip greens were sidelined, their roots stealing the spotlight. But in their time they were a feast, a green bridge to warmer days, proof that even the humblest crop could shine if you looked up from the dirt. This concludes the medieval vegetable story. Next, we'll shift to the Taj Mahal, starting with Shah Jahan's grief. You're in the heart of the Mughal Empire 1631, where the air hangs heavy with incense and sorrow. Emperor Shah Jahan, ruler of a glittering dominion, sits in a darkened chamber, his world shattered. His beloved Mumtaz Mahal, not just his wife but his confidant, his light has slipped away lost, giving birth to their 14th child. You can almost hear the silence that follows his vibrant laugh gone quiet, his hair, they say, turning white from grief. It's not the kind of loss that fades with a feast or a campaign. It's a wound that carves deep like a chisel on marble. Shah Jahan withdraws the court, holding its breath as he wrestles with a pain too vast for empires. But from this darkness a vision stirs. You see it in his eyes, a monument not of war or power but of love eternal. He dreams of a tomb for Mumtaz so flawless it could mirror paradise itself, a place where her memory would outlast time. White marble, pure as dawn, would rise by the Yamuna River, its dome a whisper of the heavens. This isn't just a building, it's a promise, a way to hold her forever. The Taj Mahal is born in his heart, a marvel, yet to be carved but already alive in his resolve. If you're with me dim, the lights let the fan hum softly and tell me where are you listening from next. We'll meet the hands that turned this grief into stone. Picture the bustling grounds of Agra, where the Yamuna River glints under a relentless sun, and a dream in marble is taking shape. Shah Jahan's vision for the Taj Mahal demands more than stone, it calls for genius. You're surrounded by a silent army of over 20,000 from Persian architects to Indian masons, their hands weaving a tapestry of cultures. At the helm is Ustad Ahmad Lahouri, a master who sees not just walls but poetry in symmetry, his plans turning grief into geometry. Persian calligraphers trace Quranic verses, Ottoman dome builders sketch curves like crescent moons, and Rajasthani stonecutters polish marble until it glows like a lover's promise. You hear the clink of chisels, the creak of elephant-hauled carts bearing translucent Makrana marble from 300 kilometres away. Turkish garden planners map paradise in quadrants, while Central Asian artisans press lapis lazuli and jade into floral mosaics that seem to bloom. every detail is a marvel of unity, a Mughal court in miniature, diverse yet harmonious. Shah Jahan spares no coin, no effort, because love he believes deserves nothing less. The Taj isn't just built, it's crafted, each stone a testament to skill and devotion. If this tale's pulling you in, drop a comment, where's your corner of the world? Next, we'll dig into the engineering that made this marvel stand firm. You're standing by the Yamuna River in Agra 1630s, where the muddy banks pulse with the chaos of creation. Shah Jahan's Taj Mahal is no mere dream now. It's a challenge to defy time and nature itself. The river's flow shimmering like liquid silver whispers of paradise, but threatens to shift the soft soil beneath. You watch engineers' faces etched with focus devise a foundation to carry the weight of grief and glory. They sink deep wells of brick filled with stone and rubble, a floating base that anchors the monument against floods and time's erosion. Wooden beams bind it like the spine of a giant, steady and unyielding. Above, the materials tell their own story. You see caravans of elephants hauling Makrana marble, its white translucence catching the dawn's pink glow quarried from Rajasthan's distant hills. Red sandstone forms the bones of surrounding structures, while gems jade from China. Turquoise from Tibet, sapphires from Sri Lanka, arrive for intricate inlays, each a fleck of the world woven into Shah Jahan's love. The logistics are staggering, ox carts groan, river barges glide, artisans carve on site with a precision that feels like prayer. This isn't just engineering, it's devotion building a monument to outlast empires. If you're caught in this tale, let me know. Where are you listening from next? We'll rise to the Taj's crowning dome, a marvel of symmetry and sky. You're gazing up at the Taj Mahal, its silhouette cutting the Agra sky like a poem in stone. The central dome, soaring nearly 73 metres, looms like a full moon caught in marble, a celestial crown that pulls your eyes heavenward. It's no accident this double dome design, a Persian trick, hides an inner shell for perfect proportions inside, while the outer curves flare like a lotus bud, sacred in both Hindu and Islamic eyes. Engineers balanced its massive weight on an octagonal drum using hidden arches and meticulous math to keep it steady, a marvel that feels like it floats. Topping it is a golden kalasa glinting with Hindu and Islamic motifs, a nod to the empire's blended heart. Around it, 4 smaller domed shatris frame the skyline, their rhythm echoing the main dome's grace, while minarets tilt ever so slightly outward, a clever safeguard ensuring they'd fall away from the tomb if disaster struck. Inside, the inner dome's chamber hums with acoustics so fine, a whispered prayer reverberates like a breath from eternity. This is symmetry as devotion, every line and curve mirroring the divine order Shah Jahan sought to capture. The Taj isn't just a building, it's a map of love drawn with geometry and light. Drop a comment if this moves you. What's your time zone? Next we'll walk the gardens and unravel the Taj's lingering mysteries. You're walking through the Taj Mahal's gates, the marble tomb glowing ahead, but it's the garden that stops you, a charbor, a 4-part paradise carved from earth and sky. Cypress trees dark and eternal line paths, where jasmine and roses spill their scent into the morning mist. Water flows in channels reflecting the dome like a mirror of heaven, a nod to the Quranic rivers of paradise. Shah Jahan placed the tomb not at the centre, but at the northern edge, its image rippling in the Yamuna River, a soul's passage into eternity. The central pool, the Hausa Kausa, holds the Taj's reflection, still a quiet call to contemplate love beyond time. This isn't a garden for strolling, it's for feeling, for breathing in beauty as truth. Yet whispers cling to the Taj like shadows. They speak of a black Taj, a mirror tomb Shah Jahan planned across the river halted when his son imprisoned him. No foundations prove it, but the Yamuna's dark waters spark the myth. Beneath the ornate cenotaphs lie Mumtaz and Shah Jahan's true graves, plain in a crypt, a reminder of death's humility. Sealed chambers and staircases to nowhere fuel tales of secrets or unfinished dreams. The Taj keeps its silence, its calligraphy verses of mercy etched in black speaking for it. O soul, thou art at rest. If this moves you, tell me, where are you tonight? This ends the Taj's tale. Next, we'll trace colour's ancient roots, starting with ochre. You're crouching in a cave 75,000 years ago, where the air smells of damp stone, and the flicker of a fire paints shadows on the walls. In your hand is ochre, a chunk of earth, red, yellow, brown, born of iron oxide gritty, but alive with possibility. This isn't just dirt. It's humanity's first brushstroke, the dawn of art and meaning. In South Africa's Blombos Cave, early humans scratched geometric patterns into ochre, mixed it with fat or water, and painted their world. Shell containers and grinding stones nearby hint at purpose, not random daubs, but a craft, a ritual, as if they were alchemists of the earth. You'd see ochre in Lascaux's bison, or Altamira's deer, its red mirroring blood life death. Its stained burial bones a prayer for the journey beyond, or shielded skin as sunscreen practical as it was sacred. Ochre wasn't just colour, it was a voice before words, a way to say, we were here. No empires, no scrolls, just hands reaching for meaning in the dark. If you're drifting with this tale, dim, the lights let a fan hum, and drop a note. Where's your corner of the world? Next, we'll sail to ancient Egypt, where blue and green became more than colours, they became gods. You're in ancient Egypt standing in a workshop, where the Nile's breath hums through reed walls, and the air smells of hot sand and copper. Artisans hunch over kilns crafting Egyptian blue, the world's first synthetic pigment, a vibrant hue born of sand, copper and calcium heated until it glows like the heavens. This isn't just paint, it's alchemy, a colour so rare it drapes statues, tomb walls and sarcophagi in the sacred. Blue was the Nile's pulse, the sky's promise of rebirth, and you'd see it on amulets or mummy wrappings guiding souls to eternity. It wasn't cheap, but for the divine, no cost was too great. Nearby you spot green ground from malachite, a copper-rich stone hauled from Sinai's harsh mines. Its earthy glow coats Osiris's skin in temple, art a nod to resurrection and fertile fields. You'd find it on priestesses' eyelids not just for beauty, but for protection, warding off evil with a mineral's quiet power. Both colours were more than decoration. They were Egypt's theology in pigment tying life, death and gods into one cosmic thread. If this tale's pulling you in, crack a window, let the fan hum and tell me where are you tonight. Next we'll dive into Rome's crimson, where a snail's blood dyed empires in power. You're in a Roman port where the sea air stinks of salt and crushed snails, and the docks buzz with the labour of empire. Here Tyrian purple is born, a deep red violet wrung from the glands of murex snails, tens of thousands sacrificed for a few precious grams. The dye's stench clings to your nose, but its colour-rich and unyielding cloaks, emperors and senators a badge of divine rule. You'd see togas edged in purple, or whole robes reserved for Caesar himself, a hue so costly it screamed power. In Byzantium, empresses birthed heirs in purple-lined rooms, their babies born in the purple while wearing it without permission could mean death. Then there's vermilion, a fiery red from Cinnabar Mercury's toxic child. You'd find it blazing in Pompeii's frescoes, or Byzantine icons marking martyrs' blood or Christ's passion. Ground into paint, it glows with a warmth that draws the eye used sparingly for its price and poison. Crimson wasn't just colour, it was control, a visual shorthand for might and sacrifice woven into robes and walls. If you're caught in this story, drop a comment. What's your time zone? Next, we'll chase ultramarine blue, so rare it cost more than gold and painted the Virgin's robes. You're in a Renaissance artist's workshop, where the air smells of linseed oil and the faint grit of crushed stone. On the table lies lapis lazuli, mined from Afghanistan's jagged peaks, its deep blue flecked with gold like a night sky. Ground by hand, kneaded with wax and lye, it becomes ultramarine beyond the sea, a pigment worth more than gold. You'd see it brushed onto the Virgin Mary's robes or heavenly skies in altarpieces, its glow a prayer in colour. Patrons paid fortunes to flaunt their piety, each stroke a testament to faith and wealth. The process was grueling, purifying the stone to capture its radiant depth, a blue no other hue could touch. Hue. Cheaper azurite, a coppery blue filled backgrounds or underlayers, but it lacked ultramarine's divine shimmer. Artists like Giotto and Michelangelo layered both playing light and shadow to evoke calm or majesty. As the Renaissance unfolded, blue slipped from sacred robes to landscapes and gowns, hinting at melancholy or distance. It wasn't just colour, it was transcendence, a bridge to the infinite painted with painstaking care. If this tale's drawing you in dim, the lights let a fan hum and tell me where are you listening from. It's 9:46 AM here in my time zone. Next we'll explore reds, yellows, and the synthetic hues that changed art forever. picture yourself in a medieval scriptorium where monks hunch over manuscripts, their fingers stained with the pulse of colour. Vermilion, a fiery red from toxic cinnabar, glows in depictions of Christ's blood, or a cardinal's robe, its brilliance screaming sacrifice and power. Madder, softer, comes from plant roots painting earthy pinks and burgundies in tapestries, or saints' garments a humbler red for human warmth. Yellow, meanwhile, dances between divinity and deceit. Ochre's golden warmth lights Egyptian tombs, while orpament's arsenic-laced neon crowns saints or marks Judas's betrayal. Lead tin yellow, buttery and opaque, catches sunlight in Vermeer's glowing skies. Then in the 19th century, colour breaks free. You're in a chemist's lab now, where young William Perkins stumbles on mauve, a synthetic purple that stains the world. Suddenly, chrome yellow, cobalt blue and alizarin crimson flood artists' palettes, cheap, bright, consistent. Monet's landscapes shimmer. Van Gogh's skies swirl, no longer bound by nature's limits. But some hues, like arsenic green, bite back toxic or fading fast. Colour turns personal, emotional red for revolution, blue for sorrow. This is art unchained, a spectrum reborn in labs. Drop a comment, where are you today? This wraps our colour story. Next we'll hear ancient Greece's music, a gift from the gods. You're in ancient Greece, where the air hums with olive groves, whispers, and the distant crash of waves. Music isn't just sound here, it's a gift from the gods woven into the cosmos like starlight. The Greeks believe it orders nature, sharpens the mind, and lifts the soul to divine heights. Picture the Muses, 9 sisters born of Zeus and Mnemosyne. Goddess of memory, each guarding an art. Euterpe strums melodies for lyric poetry. Terpsichora sways with dance, their names invoked before every song, a nod to the sacred spark of creation. Apollo, golden lyre in hand, rules music's harmony, calm, precise, a god of light and reason. His rival Dionysus stirs frenzy with wild reeds music that unravels control and sparks ecstasy. You hear Orpheus, the mortal bard whose lyre tames beasts, bends trees, and softens Hades himself to free his lost Eurydice, a tale of music's power over fate. This isn't mere entertainment, it's a force that binds earth to heaven. If you're sinking into this story dim, the lights let a fan's hum carry you and drop a note. Where are you right now? It's 9:47 a.m. here in my corner. Next, we'll meet the lyre and Orlos instruments that shaped Greece's soul. You're in a sunlit Greek courtyard, where the air smells of dust and rosemary, and music drifts like a living thing. In one hand you hold a lyre light, elegant, its tortoise-shell body and sheep gut strings singing with a pluck of the plectrum. It's Apollo's instrument tied to poetry and discipline taught to young aristocrats to hone their minds and morals. You strum, and its clear notes feel like sunlight on marble, shaping harmony and restraint. Boys learn it not just to play, but to live balance in every chord, self-control in every rhythm. It's the sound of a polished soul, noble and steady. Across the agora you hear the Orlos, a double reed pipe played in pairs, its haunting wail cutting through the air like a storm. This is Dionysus's voice, wild, ecstatic, pulsing with military marches or frenzied rituals. You'd hear it in torchlit dances, stirring passions or summoning gods. Its breathy cry, held steady by a leather strap, isn't for calm, it's for unravelling, for losing yourself in the divine. Lyre and Orlos, order and chaos, these are Greece's heartbeat. Each note a choice between reason and release. Tell me, where's your place in this tale? Next, we'll see how music shaped Greek minds through education. You're in an ancient Greek gymnasium where the air smells of olive oil and sun-baked stone, and young boys gather lyres in hand, their voices rising in song. Music isn't a pastime here, it's a pillar of paideia, the training that shapes a citizen's soul. The Greeks believe it tunes the heart, aligning it with the cosmos's harmony. You see a boy strum a lyre, learning not just notes but discipline, his fingers finding balance as his mind learns restraint. Plato in his Republic calls music a moral force, insisting the Dorian mode, sober steady, builds warriors' courage, while the Lydian softness risks weakening resolve. Aristotle, more practical, sees music as a tool for catharsis, purging emotions, but he agrees it moulds character. You hear epic poems like the Iliad sung to lyre strums, teaching heroism and history through melody. Boys memorize these tales, their voices weaving cultural threads, piety, honour, identity. Music isn't about performance, it's about becoming forging souls attuned to beauty and order. If this tale's humming in your mind dim, the lights let a fan's soft whir carry you, and tell me where are you right now. It's 9:49 AM here in my zone. Next we'll explore music as medicine, a balm for body and soul in ancient Greece. You're in a Greek sanctuary of Asclepius, god of healing, where the air smells of herbs and incense and soft lyre notes drift like a gentle breeze. Music here isn't just art, it's medicine, a tool to soothe the soul and mend the body. The Greeks believe sound can restore balance, tuning the self like a lyre's strings. Pythagoras, the mystic mathematician, taught his followers to start and end each day, with melodies, morning songs to spark reason, evening hymns to cradle sleep. You see a patient, eyes heavy with melancholy, calmed by a lyre's steady strum, its notes easing the chaos of a troubled mind. In these sacred spaces, music joins chants, baths and herbs in rituals to realign the spirit with nature's order. The Aulus's wail might stir emotions, but the lyre's calm is favoured for nerves frayed by mania or grief. Philosophers like Theophrastus note cases of madness softened by careful tunes, as if melody could coax the soul back home. It's not magic, but intuition music shifts. Breath slows the heart, a truth science later proves. If you're feeling this story, drop a comment. Where's your corner of the world? Next, we'll step into Greek theatre, where music pulses as drama's heartbeat. You're in an ancient Greek amphitheatre, the stone seats warm under a star-streaked sky, the air alive with the scent of pine and dust. The chorus steps forward, 12 voices chanting in unison, their movements a dance of rhythm and fate. Music isn't just a backdrop here, it's the soul of Greek drama born from Dionysian festivals, where song and ecstasy blurred the mortal and divine. In tragedies by Aeschylus or Sophocles, you hear the lyre's sombre notes, and the Aulus's haunting wail weaving tales of gods and ruin. The chorus sings of justice, fear, or hope. Their melody is a collective voice for the city's heart, guiding you through the play's moral maze. In comedies like Aristophanes' sharp-tongued jabs, the music turns cheeky lively tunes, mock politicians, or flip myths for laughs. You feel the Aulus pulse its reedy cry, spiking tension or joy, tying words to motion. This isn't mere show, it's ritual, a mirror of the polis's dreams and doubts. The chorus's song binds you to the crowd, a shared catharsis under the open sky. If this tale's stirring, you let a fan hum softly, and tell me where are you tonight. It's 9:50 AM here in my zone. Next, we'll wander through Greece's daily life, where music wove every moment into harmony. You're strolling through an ancient Greek village, where the air smells of bread baking and sea salt, and music threads through life like a quiet pulse. At dawn, a hymn to Apollo rises from a temple lyre, notes purifying the air. In the fields, harvesters chant to align their sickles, swing, their songs turning toil into rhythm. You hear fishermen hum as they mend nets, their melodies as steady as the tide. Music isn't live in theatres alone, it's in labour worship and joy. At a wedding, choruses fill the streets with dance voices and drums knitting the community tight. In homes, women sing while weaving their tunes, teaching children myths of heroes. At symposia, men trade songs over wine lyres, sparking laughter or debate. Even funerals carry music threnodies raw, and keening give grief a voice. The Greeks don't separate music from living. It's as vital as breath, tying the mundane to the divine. From paean chants at festivals to work songs in vineyards, every note builds identity and order. If you're with me, drop a comment where's your place in this story. This ends our Greek music tale. All parts have been rewritten. Further next, presses return no output. Picture this. It's 1325, and you're jolted awake in a medieval village that makes your worst camping trip look like a luxury spa. Forget Hollywood's shining knights and fairy tale castles. The Middle Ages are a gritty, grimy fight for survival, where you're more likely to wrestle fleas than dragons. If you're cozy in bed right now, hit that like button and subscribe. Only if you're vibing with this journey, and drop a comment with where you're tuning in from and what time it is. It's wild to see who's joining us from across the globe. Now dim the lights, maybe flip on a fan for that soft hum, and let's dive into a world that'll make you kiss your Wi-Fi router in gratitude. You blink awake, sprawled on a straw mattress that's more bug than bed, the air thick with the stench of damp hay and last week's goat. It's not a bedroom, it's a wooden hut, one room for you, your family, a couple of chickens and an army of insects throwing a rave. The church bell clangs outside a relentless medieval alarm clock that doesn't care if you got 3 hours of sleep. Your blanket, a wool slab unwashed since the last king's coronation, weighs as much as a small pony caked with grime and regret. No memory foam, no fluffy pillows, just a scratchy pile of misery that smells like it was dragged through a barn because it was. You're 22, which is basically senior citizen status here, and your body's already filing complaints. Your spine creaks like a haunted gate, your knees crunch like a sack of gravel, and stretching feels like a personal attack. The air's so cold it bites, and your bare feet hit a floor that's either slick with last night's rain thanks to the leaky thatched roof or crusty with mystery substances you don't want to identify. Privacy, a myth. Your family's snoring beside you, maybe a random cousin who's been crashing since the harvest, all sharing this open concept nightmare. The smell's a brutal mix of stale ale, human sweat, and something you hope isn't mould, but deep down know it is. This is your morning in medieval Europe and it's not even 6 a.m. yet. You're never alone, fleas rodents, and the weight of survival are your constant crew. Congrats, you're alive. The bad news. That's the highlight of your day. So pull yourself from this haystack of horrors, because nature's calling, and it's about to get a whole lot worse. You've clawed your way out of bed, but now nature's screaming and it's not asking politely. If you're picturing a sparkling bathroom with fluffy towels snap out of it, this is 1325 and hygiene is a word nobody's invented yet. Your toilet's a wooden bucket tucked behind the hut already brimming, because Uncle Wolfstarn had a wild night with some dodgy turnips. The smell could knock a vulture off a corpse. You hold your breath, do what you gotta do, then brace yourself, toss it into the street. Yup, the street. You're supposed to yell Gardez-vous old French for watch out below, but nobody dodges fast enough. Medieval towns or open sewers, a charming stew of human waste animal droppings and liquids you'd rather not name. If you're in a fancy town with public latrines, don't get excited. You're shoulder to shoulder with strangers in a reeking outhouse, making awkward small talk while praying the wooden bench doesn't collapse. Ventilation's a cruel joke and toilet paper never heard of it. You're wiping with straw leaves or a scrap of wool if you're feeling bougie. Sometimes you just don't. Handshakes aren't a thing yet, and now you know why. Even in a castle, it's no picnic. You've got a garderobe, a hole in the wall, dropping straight into the moat grate until enemies climb up the waste chute. Yeah, that happened. Talk about a backdoor invasion. Every trip to relieve yourself is cold, public, and vaguely humiliating, like a twisted social experiment. One wrong step on a slick path and you're face first in the street's river. You stumble back, itching from fleas, your hands gritty, and realise you haven't even tackled your teeth yet. Spoiler, that's not going to be fun either. Welcome to medieval hygiene, where every choice feels like a dare and you're just trying not to lose your dignity or your breakfast. You've survived the medieval bathroom gauntlet, so surely you deserve a reward like a warm-hearty breakfast to fuel your day. Think again. It's 1325 and comfort food is as mythical as a unicorn. You shuffle to the fire, squatting on a dirt floor that's seen more action than a battlefield, and stare into a wooden bowl of something. Meat pottage, the medieval equivalent of a culinary crime scene. This gloopy grey stew's been simmering in the same pot for days, maybe weeks. Tossing in whatever scraps you scrounge, grains a sad turnip, maybe a bean if the harvest didn't betray you. It's less a meal, and more a science experiment gone wrong, with a taste that lingers like regret. On the side, there's bread, but don't get excited. This rye or barley loaf is harder than your landlord's heart bulked up with sawdust or ground acorns, because wheat's for nobles who don't know your name. You don't slice it, you wrestle it, praying your teeth survive the encounter. For a drink, no coffee's brewing, no orange juice is chilling. Instead, you gulp weak ale breakfast beer because the water's a parasite party you're not invited to. Kids sip it too, their little faces grim as they chug survival juice. Meat or cheese? That's a Sunday dream, and only if the Lord's in a rare, generous mood. Fresh fruit? Only if it's fall and hasn't already turned into wine. Every bite's a gamble. That bread might chip a tooth. The pottage could hide a rat's midnight snack. Spices like pepper are worth more than your hut, so flavour comes from onions, maybe salt, and a hefty dose of despair. You chew slowly, not because you're savouring, but because you're negotiating with your stomach to keep it down. This isn't breakfast, it's a test of endurance. You swallow, wipe your gritty hands on your tunic and brace for the day ahead. already dreaming of a time when food doesn't feel like punishment. Your stomach's grumbling through the pottage ordeal, and now it's time to face the medieval fashion disaster that is getting dressed. Your wardrobe's not a closet, it's a single outfit. A rough wool tunic or linen shift you've worn so long, it's practically a second skin. Seasonal trends. Forget it. This is your look until it disintegrates or gives you a rash that sends you to the priest for an exorcism. Underwear's a luxury, maybe a linen undertunic if you're lucky, but most days you're going commando under layers of scratchy, sweat-soaked wool stitched by someone who thought seam meant suggestion. Washing clothes is a fantasy. No soap, no washing machine, just a river you'd have to haul water from heat over a fire and scrub with ashes if the sun's even out, which it isn't. Your tunic's stiff with stains, smelling like a pigsty left to fester, and you're not much better. Shoes. If you've got 'em, they're untreated leather barely holding together, offering less support than a broken promise. Most peasants go barefoot, trudging through mud dung and sharp rocks that turn every step into a medieval minefield, your skin screaming. Fleas and lice have set up permanent residence, throwing parties in your armpits while bedbugs nibble your legs. Everyone's itchy nobles monks, even the kids are walking insect farms. You scratch with a stick, a spoon, anything, and nobody blinks. A rash. That's just your body's way of saying, welcome to the club. No dermatologist, no cream, just you and your scabies sidekick for the next 6 months. You pull on this misery costume already sweating and itching and step outside where the real work's waiting to break you. In medieval Europe, getting dressed isn't about style. It's about surviving the outfit. You've choked down your pottage and wrestled into your itchy tunic, but now it's time to face your morning smile or what's left of it. In 1325, oral hygiene is about as real as a dragon's dental plan. No toothbrush, no toothpaste, no floss, and definitely no minty mouthwash to save you from the battlefield that is your mouth. You might chew a twig or swish some vinegar if you're feeling fancy, but most days your teeth are on their own, and they're losing the war. By your mid-20s, your smile's more haunted crypt than Hollywood sparkle with cavities carving out real estate and gums swollen like they're staging a revolt. That gritty rye bread and sticky pottage. They're not just food, they're tooth assassins leaving decay in their wake. Sugar's creeping into noble diets, rotting their teeth faster, but you're not spared fermented bread, and years of chewing hard loaves do the job slowly but surely. Toothaches are your new normal, a dull throb that feels like the weather always there, always miserable. Pain bad enough to make you consider yanking the offender yourself. That's not a joke. The local barber surgeon, yep, the same guy, hacking your hair, doubles as your dentist, wielding an iron hook by candlelight with all the finesse of a blacksmith. No anesthesia, just a prayer and a scream. An infected tooth isn't just pain, it's a death sentence waiting to happen. Without antibiotics, a bad molar can spiral into sepsis, turning a cavity into your funeral. Kissing. Good luck halitosis is the medieval perfume, and everyone's wearing it. Nobody's judging your smile, though. They're too busy sizing up your land or livestock. Your mouth's a wreck, and you've got no choice but to grit your rotting teeth and keep going. Because in medieval Europe, dental care isn't about prevention. It's about surviving the pain long enough to make it to lunch. Your teeth are throbbing, but there's no time to sulk work's calling, and in 1325 it's a brutal master. If you're one of the 90% scraping by as a peasant, your job's simple, don't die while slaving for a lord who wouldn't pick you out of a lineup. No office, no coffee breaks, just sunrise to sunset labour 6 days a week. Sundays off, unless the harvest's late, or your toes turning black from an infection you can't afford to care about. Your tools, a splintery wooden hoe, a rusty sickle and whatever's left of your spine. You're ploughing fields by hand, or if you're rich with an ox that's as stubborn as the mud you're knee-deep in. You dig ditches, sow seeds, pull weeds and haul water until your back's screaming and your hands are raw. Tired. Nobody cares. Mental health day. That's a fever dream. If you're a woman, you're not just in the fields, you're cooking, cleaning, spinning wool and dodging your husband's lice while keeping the kids alive. Kids, they're working by age 5, clutching tiny rakes and dreaming of not catching the flu. Not a farmer. Maybe you're a blacksmith or tanner choking on smoke or animal guts in a shed that's one spark away from a fireball. Pay barely enough to eat. Perks, blisters, and the occasional near-death experience. Break a bone, tough luck, fever. Chug some warm ale and keep swinging. Stop working and you don't eat. Medieval Europe's got no safety net, just a quick replacement if you keel over. You grip your shovel, ignore the pain shooting up your arm and keep digging, because this isn't a career, it's a slow-motion fight to stay alive. The sun's climbing, and the fields don't care about your dreams. In this world, labour isn't a choice. It's the only thing keeping you from the grave. You've barely survived the morning's labour, your hands blistered and your back begging for mercy. But now the medieval weather's here to remind you who's really in charge. In 1325 there's no thermostat, no insulation, just a world where the sky seems personally offended by your existence. Winter's a beast. Your hut's wooden walls have gaps wide enough to toss a chicken through, and the cloth windows let in more frost than light. The hearth's fire is a sad flicker, because firewood's worth more than your weekly wages, and stealing a stick from the Lord's forest could get you hanged. You huddle under your grimy wool tunic, breath fogging nose frozen, and fingers stiff as icicles, wondering if your toes will survive until spring. Summer's no better. It turns your hut into a sweaty clay oven. No fans, no breeze, just you baking in layers of wool you can't peel off without scandalising the village or inviting a swarm of flies. The sun's relentless and there's no sunscreen, just straw hats you weave yourself looking like a desperate scarecrow. Heatstroke's just a bad turn, and the fields don't care if you're dizzy. Mosquitoes hum in your ears all night, and the stench of last week's goat stew festers in the corner. Whether you're shivering through winter's bite or melting in summer's glare, your clothes itch. Your food's grim, and work never stops. Medieval climate control. It's a cruel joke just to you the elements, and a prayer to make it through the day without frostbite or a sunburn that feels like divine punishment. You've barely survived the morning's labour, your hands blistered and your back begging for mercy. But now the medieval weather's here to remind you who's really in charge. In 1325 there's no thermostat, no insulation, just a world where the sky seems personally offended by your existence. Winter's a beast, your huts. Wooden walls have gaps wide enough to toss a chicken through, and the cloth windows let in more frost than light. The hearth's fire is a sad flicker, because firewood's worth more than your weekly wages, and stealing a stick from the Lord's forest could get you hanged. You huddle under your grimy wool tunic, breath fogging nose frozen and fingers stiff as icicles, wondering if your toes will survive until spring. Summer's no better, it turns your hut into a sweaty clay oven. No fans, no breeze, just you baking in layers of wool you can't peel off without scandalising the village or inviting a swarm of flies. The sun's relentless, and there's no sunscreen, just straw hats you weave yourself, looking like a desperate scarecrow. Heatstroke's just a bad turn, and the fields don't care if you're dizzy. Mosquitoes hum in your ears all night, and the stench of last week's goat stew festers in the corner. Whether you're shivering through winter's bite or melting in summer's glare, your clothes itch, your food's grim, and work never stops. Medieval climate control. It's a cruel joke just you the elements, and a prayer to make it through the day without frostbite or a sunburn that feels like divine punishment. You're parched from dodging deadly water and battered from the fields, but now a cough's creeping up, or maybe that rash from your flea-infested tunic's gone rogue. Time to see a doctor. Nope, it's 1325, and medieval medicine's less about healing and more like a theology class with a side of torture. Got a fever, a broken arm, or a suspicious sneeze. It's all because your humours, blood phlegm, yellow bile, black bile are out of whack like a soup recipe gone demonic. The cure? Bloodletting. That's right, your local barber, fresh from trimming beards, grabs a dull blade or a leech and drains your excess blood into a bowl. Feeling faint yet? You should be. Sad or anxious. Too much black bile time for a laxative purge or some prayers while everyone side-eyes you like you're halfway to the coffin. Break a bone. Good luck. Surgery's a knife-wielding free-for-all done by candlelight with tools that haven't been cleaned since the last crusade. No anaesthesia, just a scream and a prayer. Germs. Nobody's heard of them. Disease comes from bad air or God's wrath over that time you cursed the cow. Stomachache. Must be sinful thoughts. Confess, puke, repeat. If things get worse, they'll slap on more leeches, maybe sprinkle some crushed beetles and call the priest for last rites just in case. If you survive, it's a miracle and the doctor takes all the credit while the leech gets a promotion. Medicine here isn't science. It's a gamble where the house always wins and the house is death. You limp back to your hut, fever spiking, praying you don't croak before dawn. In medieval Europe, getting sick isn't a setback. It's a one-way ticket to the afterlife, courtesy of a leech and a bad theory. After surviving the medieval ER, your stomach's howling for something to quiet it down. Too bad dinner in 1325 isn't a meal. It's a survival challenge. Food preservation's a pipe dream, no fridges, no freezers, Just salt smoke or a prayer that winter's cold doesn't fail you. Got meat lucky you, but it's been hanging for days, swarmed by flies dunked in sketchy brine, and probably nibbled by